After 3 successful Friday the 13th movies, it was time to put Jason Voorhees to bed once and for all with the final chapter. We'll take a closer look back at this 80s horror sequel on the next Back to the Future.
Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
This movie starts up right where part 3 ended. Jason is dead and his body is taken to the morgue where even though he's dead, he manages to cockblock the coroner trying to get busy with a nurse. With their moment ruined, the nurse storms out, leaving the coroner to become the first victim of the movie. Nothing like a little hacksaw action to the neck while gawking at the TV. And the poor nurse is next as Jason corners her and guts her with a scalpel. We jump out to the Camp Crystal Lake area where Joan Jarvis lives with their daughter Trish and her 12-year-old son Tommy, who's played by a young Corey Feldman just 1 year before he would star in The Goonies. After meeting the Jarvis family, we learn that the house nearby has been rented out by some kids. 6 kids to be exact, 4 guys and 2 girls. Our 2 single fellas in the group are Ted and Jimmy, played by Lawrence Moneson of Last American Virgin fame, and Crispin Glover, who we all remember as George McFly from Back to the Future. Ted is the outspoken a-hole, while Jimmy is the shy, nice one. On their drive to the lake house, they get lost and stop right next to a cemetery where Pamela Voorhees just happens to be buried front and center. They soon pass a hitchhiker and don't even bother slowing down for her. And in a kind of comical scene, Jason attacks her from behind and stabs her through the back of the neck as she eats a banana. And as she dies, she chokes the banana until it goes limp. It's dark when the group finally makes it to the house and Trish and Tommy come over to introduce themselves. Later that night, we learn that Sara is a virgin and Samantha is the complete opposite. Instead of going to sleep, Tommy is watching Samantha get undressed across the way and he gets busted by his mom. Little perv. The next day, while out on a walk, the group runs into twins Tina and Terry who decide to join them for a swim. At the lake, everyone decides to skinny dip. Well, everyone except Sara. Trish and Tommy stop by and Tommy gets a quick anatomy lesson before Trish can block his view. Trish's car breaks down on the way home and they're rescued by a big burly camper named Rob. Trish is a bit smitten and gives him a ride back to the house where Rob tells her that he's up in the woods hunting for bear. But he's also very curious to know if there are any other people up in the woods. That night, the group throws a party at the house and Tina and Terry join them. It's one of the most awkward parties ever. Or maybe it's just how Jimmy dances. Good Lord, man, you're gonna hurt yourself. When Paul switches the music to a slow song so he can dance with Samantha, Ted tries to make his move on Tina. She shoots him down cold and tries flirting with Paul before Samantha shuts that shit down. Ted once again shows his ass in the kitchen, giving Jimmy shit. I told you he was an asshole. And again, Tina makes a play for Paul, who doesn't seem bothered that Samantha is obviously pissed at him. Poor Ted. He had his sights set on Tina, but she's got her eye on Paul instead. This gives Jimmy the opportunity to give shit back to Ted for a change. What does a woman do when she's pissed at her man? Why, she goes out into the dark night, strips off her clothes and goes for a swim. I'm not complaining, but did no one bring a bathing suit on this trip? She swims out to a raft and climbs in. The lake is quiet and there's a bit of fog, and then she feels like someone is out there with her and thinks it's Paul. Sorry, Samantha, that ain't Paul jumping up out of the water and stabbing you. So she's dead. Paul comes to his senses and goes outside looking for Samantha. She's pretty easy to spot because she's still laying out in the raft. Paul sneaks out there because he thinks she fell asleep. Yeah, she's taking a dirt nap, Paul. Let her be. He freaks out when he figures out that she's dead. He swims over to the dock, and just as he's climbing out, Jason stabs him right in the crotch with a harpoon gun and then lifts him up in the air and pulls the trigger. Everyone in the audience cringed at this death because no one, man or woman, wants to get stabbed in the crotch with anything, let alone a harpoon gun. His scream is heard in the distance by Rob, but somehow no one at the party house or the Jarvis house heard him. Rob grabs his machete and goes to investigate, and when he returns to his campsite, it's been ransacked and his rifle is torn apart. Back at the party house, we learn that Tina is a bit of a whore and Terry is the shy one. Ted is dumbfounded when Tina takes Jimmy upstairs, leaving him on the couch all alone. Ted is high and watching silent porn movies, and Terry decides to leave. It's raining pretty hard outside, and she doesn't even make it to her bike as we see the shadow of Jason stabbing her. We then see her body impaled to the side of the house with a spear. Inside the house, Sara decides it's time to seal the deal with her boyfriend Doug. Across the way, Tracy comes home to an empty house and no power. She steps outside and something scares her, but it cuts away before you see anything. so we never see her killed or see her body. Trish and Tommy get home and start looking for their mom in the dark house. Trish leaves Tommy home while she goes out to look for Rob. After a bit of lovemaking, poor Jimmy is worried about his performance because Ted called him a bad lay. He's relieved when Tina assures him that he did just great. Riding high on his sexual triumph, Jimmy goes downstairs to gloat in front of Ted. His euphoria is short-lived though, as Jason hands him a corkscrew and then he takes a meat cleaver right to the face. So yeah, he's dead. Tina looks out the window of the bedroom and sees that Terry's bicycle is still parked outside. When she goes to look out another window, Jason reaches in from the outside and yanks her out through the window, where she bounces off the roof of the car. Who knew Jason could climb like that? I mean, was he just patiently waiting out there in the rain for someone to come to the window? How long was he going to wait? Back at Rob's campsite, Rob tells Trish everything he knows about Jason, and he tells her that Jason is still alive because his body is missing from the morgue. This news freaks her out because Tommy's home alone. Back at the party house, Ted is still smoking a little smoke and watching silent porn movies. He goes up to the screen to get a closer look when the movie reel breaks. He turns around to see what happened and Jason stabs him through the screen. A big old knife right to the back of the head. Upstairs, Sara and Doug finish having some shower sex, so she goes back to her room for some hair maintenance while Doug finishes taking a shower. The lights go out in the bathroom and Jason strikes again. He smashes through the shower door, grabbing Doug by his face, pushing his head up against the wall until his face caves in. The crunching sound of facial bones really completes this kill. Sara returns to the bathroom and finds poor Doug face down dead as a doornail. She screams and hauls ass downstairs but can't get out the front door. The next thing you know, an axe comes flying through the door, hitting her square in the chest. So again, just how patient is Jason? He kills Doug upstairs and then goes outside and stands by the front door with an axe waiting for somebody to come jiggle the handle? What if Sara had run to the back door? I bet he would have felt pretty stupid standing on the front porch waiting around forever. Trish and Rob make it back to Tommy as Jason cuts the phone lines. Rob and Trish then decide to go next door to check on the others, and which is kind of funny considering they were worried about Tommy being home alone, and now they just leave him home alone again. At the party house, the giant hole in the front door is a pretty clear sign that Jason has been there. Jason is a clean freak though, and he's cleaned up the murders of Sara, Ted, and Jimmy on the main floor. Rob ventures down into the basement with just a flashlight and a small knife, leaving Trish upstairs with the machete. Her dog runs into the house and runs upstairs, only to then jump out the window. So of course, she goes upstairs to check it out. Meanwhile, back at the Jarvis house, Tommy is going through Rob's bag and finds all the newspaper clippings about Jason, including the one with the sketch of what he looked like as a little kid. Trish goes into the bathroom and follows the blood trail where she finds Doug hung up face first on the wall with a spike. I guess that was a cheaper effect than showing his crushed in face. She runs all the way down to the basement to warn Rob, but it's too late. Jason was patiently waiting down in the basement. He attacks Rob with some sort of sharp tool, but it's super dark, so it's hard to make out exactly what it was. Anyways, he starts hacking at Rob as he screams for Trish to run. She just stands there and watches Jason go to work on Rob before she finally runs upstairs. I'm not sure what she was waiting for, as it didn't look like Rob was putting up any kind of fight. She goes upstairs, but then decides to go back down to the basement. What is wrong with this chick? She sees Rob is done for, so she starts back up only to have Jason reach up through the stairs and grab her leg. Thankfully, a few whacks with the machete makes him let go. She runs upstairs and out the front door where Jason has left her a gift. Right there on the front porch is dead Tina. She wasn't there before, which means Jason waited until they were inside the house and then moved her body before he went down to the basement. He really does plan all this stuff out. Instead of stepping over Tina's body like a normal person, she runs back through the house to the back door where Jimmy is crucified in the doorway with spikes. Where is he getting these railroad spikes from? Instead of ducking under Jimmy's body, she breaks a window and crawls out so she can run back to her house. She makes it back safely and starts securing the front door with a hammer and nails. While Trish and Tommy are securing windows, Rob's dead body comes flying through the windows with a garden tool stabbed into his ear hole. Then Jason comes crashing through another window and tries to grab Tommy. Trish starts playing whack-a-mole on his head with the hammer until he lets go. He then chases them upstairs where they barricade themselves in Tommy's room. When Jason finally breaks through the door, Trish plants a TV right on his melon and knocks him out. He comes to just as she tries to sneak past him, and she then makes a dash for the party house and doesn't hesitate to step over Tina's body now that Jason is right on her ass. She runs upstairs and gets cornered. Before Jason can get his hands on her, she dives right out a second-story window. Thankfully, it's been raining all night as she lands flat on her back in the mud. She slowly gets up and makes her way back home. Jason followed her back and slowly approaches her as she tries to fend him off with the machete. We get a really cool practical effect here when she splits his hand right down the middle between the fingers. It's pretty gruesome. I bet he'll never kill anyone with that hand again. Meanwhile, upstairs, Tommy has a plan. While his sister is downstairs trying to stay alive, he's upstairs working on a new hairdo. Jason finally gets her pinned to the ground and she puts up more of a fight than Rob did. Of course, with his one jacked up hand, he's kind of handicapped at the moment. Just then, Tommy makes his grand entrance down the stairs sporting his new do. He yells Jason's name until he turns around, and when Jason sees him, he's captivated. It's like looking at his younger self. Tina takes advantage of the moment and comes up behind Jason with the machete. He turns just in time as she swings, but she only manages to knock his mask off, giving us our first good long look at his ugly mug. With the mask gone, you can see the open wound in his skull that he got at the end of part 3. It's a pretty deep wound, so I'm guessing he's going to have a scar. Now that Trish has his attention, he goes after her once again. She's pretty screwed because she dropped the machete with that last swing. Tommy sees it laying there and he picks it up. Jason turns just as Tommy swings with all his might. He plants that sucker deep in the side of Jason's head. And here's another great practical effects shot. Jason drops to his knees and falls face down. The handle of the machete hits the ground and his body weight causes his head to slowly slide down the blade, almost sawing it in two. It's messy as hell, but pretty badass. Everyone loved this part in the movie. We all thought, wow, this really is the last one. There's no way he survives that. Tommy picks up the machete again as Trish hugs him tight. Jason is finally dead, but not so fast. Tommy sees Jason's hand twitch and he goes off. He starts hitting Jason with the machete over and over as Trish just screams. In the epilogue, Trish is in the hospital and worried about her brother. The doctor says that his behavior under those circumstances was perfectly normal and that he'll be just fine. The doctor leaves and Tommy comes into the room to see his big sister. His eyes are closed as they hug, and then suddenly his eyes open wide and he stares right into the camera. The end. This is one of my favorite entries in the franchise. This one in part 3. We were lied to about this being the final chapter, obviously. Plus, little Tommy Jarvis was definitely scarred for life and would appear later in the series as an adult. I remember walking out of the theater thinking that the Friday the 13th movies would continue, but with Tommy all grown up and crazy, going around killing people in Jason's mask. I was wrong. How do you rank the final chapter among all the other Friday the 13th movies? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this trip down memory lane, please hit the like and subscribe buttons below to help grow this channel. I appreciate you taking time out of your day and hope you will come back for the next Back to the Feature.
Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.